Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Everyone, welcome to the show. So 48-year-old Kentucky resident Daniel Wilson was a member of the Oathkeepers militia group when he took part in the Capitol attack. And in the weeks leading up to January 6th, Wilson conspired with other January 6th defendants on the encrypted messaging app called Telegram. But initially, Wilson was coordinating for the Million MAGA March on December 12th. And then there was another march that was supposed to happen in late January, which I'll explain in a bit. But on November 24th of 2020, Wilson wrote, quote, "Ready to kick some Antifa ass." And then later that same day, he wrote, quote, "To be honest, personally, I don't give a shit. We can show up in civilian clothes and just walk the streets in a big group. I'm just looking for an opportunity to get some and call it self-defense." So yeah, that's what they always do. So Wilson also messaged his Telegram group. This was that month. And he warned them, quote, "Gotta coordinate privately. We can't trust any of these apps." And quote, "I'm working out bail money ahead of time." Seems strange for just tourists, right? And then when other members of this Telegram group mentioned that some people were participating in, quote, guerrilla warfare training, Wilson responded with, quote, "We worked on squad movements this weekend." And quote, "I'm willing to do whatever. Done made my mind up. I understand the tip of the spear will not be easy. I'm willing to sacrifice myself if necessary, whether it means prison or death." These are the people that Donald Trump was defending last night. So Wilson also started planning for and inviting others to attend a January 20th, 2021 event, which I mentioned earlier. It was called the Million Militia March. So as you all know, that date was Joe Biden's inauguration. And Wilson and one of his friends were discussing taking weapons to that event. They were talking about how to evade the police. Wilson also agreed with other members of the Telegram group when they talked about a revolution, drawing, quote, "the last blood." And he talked about what sounded like a full-on civil war. For example, in one of his messages, he wrote, quote, "If it does turn out to be guerrilla warfare, militia-style movement, we need to try to come up with some kind of signal that can be placed in a window or on a tree or something to let us know where the safe houses are. If you can get 40 to 50 people moving as one force with concealed movement, that would be hard to stop." So Wilson was seen at the Million MAGA March in DC on December 12th of 2020. And in the Telegram group, Wilson claimed that he took part in the violence that day. He wrote in part, quote, "We hammered their asses all day. Stomped a couple out myself." Also, then Donald Trump posted his famous tweet about January 6th, "Be there, will be wild." And at that point, Wilson and his Telegram group then shifted their focus to that new date. And then throughout November and December, several members of the group posted digital flyers about occupying all congressional buildings, not just in DC, but in all states. So on December 22nd of 2020, Wilson told the group that he wouldn't be bringing his guns to DC because he's, quote, "a hands-on kind of guy." And then Wilson also said, quote, "I have to admit, I have carried my expandable baton both times I've been there. I understand it's against the rules, but I haven't had a problem yet. Hard-knuckle gloves are a must." Then in another post, Wilson told the group, quote, "Mace or bear spray is also a good idea. I will have some with me along with smokes, flashbangs, hard knuckles and baton, camel pack, and I will wear my plates." On December 24th, Wilson asked the group, quote, "If we go to a civil war, do we try to take Washington, D.C. first, or do we try to take state capitals first?" So a few days after that, Wilson told the group, quote, "I am ready to lay my life on the line. It is time for good men to do bad things." Good men? Okay. And in response to others talking about busting kneecaps and other violence, Wilson wrote, quote, "I ain't nobody, but when it comes down to it, follow me and I'll show you a symphony of destruction." On January 6th, Wilson was communicating with other people on the Zello app. For those who don't know, it basically works like a walkie-talkie, but it works through your cell phone. And at 1:44 p.m., he told multiple people to spread the word that, quote, "The people are pushing on the Capitol. We need hands on deck." Then at 2:37 p.m., he was seen entering the Capitol. He walked in through the Upper West Terrace door. He was wearing a gas mask. He walked through various areas of the building before he exited 12 minutes later. And then Wilson stood on the Capitol steps and he yelled to the mob, quote, "We are national news people," and quote, 1776.2. And he was seen carrying a can of bear spray. So he wasn't BSing about that. He actually had it with him. But sometime after that, he left the Capitol grounds. On March 9th of 2021, he was interviewed by the FBI, and you'll be so shocked to hear he lied. He claimed he never entered the Capitol, didn't know anyone who did. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess he's willing to lay his life on the line, but not willing to admit to his crime. So Wilson was arrested on May 25th of 2023, and he was charged with conspiracy to injure officers, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstructing an official proceeding, entering a restricted building or grounds, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, and parading or demonstrating in a Capitol building. In May of 2024, Wilson pleaded guilty to conspiracy to injure officers, so he faced up to 6 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and a fine of up to $250,000. And this time the prosecutor requested almost that full prison term. They asked for 5 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. This was an upward variance from the government's sentencing guidelines because Wilson has a very extensive criminal history. So get comfy. You're going to be here for a while. In 1994, Wilson was convicted of 2 felonies, burglary in the second degree and an unlawful transaction with a minor. Wilson got 7 years for those crimes, and twice he was released early, and then they sent him back to jail because he violated his parole. In 1995, Wilson was convicted of theft, which was another felony. I assume this was one of those parole violations. And then in 1997, he escaped. He escaped from prison. He was on the run for several days, so he was convicted of escape in the second degree, another felony. He was finally released in 2002, started committing crimes almost immediately. In 2003, Wilson was convicted of disorderly conduct. He had also been hit with 4th-degree assault and public intoxication, but they dropped those charges. And then in 2004, Wilson was convicted for possession of marijuana. Again, he had additional charges dismissed for reckless driving and possession of drug paraphernalia. That same year, he's convicted again for reckless driving. Again, they dropped charges of driving under the influence and criminal mischief. Then in 2005, Wilson was convicted of driving under the influence. Again, though, they cut him a break. They dismissed drug charges in that case. Wilson got popped again that same year for another DUI. He was convicted on that. Once again, though, they dropped related drug charges. There was a bit of a lull after that, and then in 2011, Wilson was again convicted of a DUI and possession of weed, and the prosecutor said Wilson has a bunch of additional arrests that didn't result in conviction. Those were things like stealing a car, driving with a suspended license, no insurance, issuing terroristic threats, public intoxication, various drug charges. I mean, And then in June of 2022, when the FBI executed the search warrant at his house for this January 6th case, they found 6 guns hidden throughout the house. Now, obviously, not something he's allowed to have given that he's a convicted felon. So in January of 2023, Wilson was indicted on 1 count of possession of a firearm by prohibited person and 1 count of possession of an unregistered firearm. So those charges were added to this case and they were taken into consideration for his sentencing. At the sentencing hearing, Wilson told the judge he regretted entering the Capitol, but he said he, quote, got involved with good intentions, and, quote, our country was in turmoil. I believe it still is. Yeah, kind of your fault, guy. So U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich presided over Wilson's case, and she said that there was no question that he intended to interfere with the certification of the election. And in the end, Wilson was sentenced to 5 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. So this is a first for Judge Friedrich. She's a Trump appointee. I usually give her grief because she has weak sentences, but this was a good one. Guess who won't be voting for Trump in November? Oh, well, I mean, hell, he might not even be on this side of the dirt by the time Wilson gets out. Fingers crossed. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe if you have not. Please donate if you possibly can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.